Have you ever woken up already exhausted by a life you haven't even lived yet, feeling pulled in every direction, distracted, restless, and quietly frustrated without knowing exactly why? You move through your days reacting, not choosing, busy but not fulfilled, surrounded by noise yet starving for clarity. And somewhere deep inside, you sense that life wasn't meant to feel this heavy. Marcus Aurelius lived under pressures far greater than yours. He ruled an empire, commanded armies, faced betrayal, illness, and the constant weight of responsibility. And yet, in his private reflections, written with no intention of being read by the world, he returned again and again to one simple question: how should a human being live when life refuses to be easy? What makes his words timeless is not their elegance, but their honesty. He didn't write to escape reality. He wrote to face it without complaint, without self-pity, and without illusion. His lessons are not about motivation in moments of comfort. They are about discipline in moments of resistance, clarity in moments of confusion, and strength when everything inside you wants to retreat. This episode is an invitation to stop drifting, to stop postponing who you could be, to stop arguing with life, and start cooperating with it on your own terms. These lessons are not gentle suggestions. They are firm reminders meant to wake you up, to pull you out of mental laziness, and to return you to what actually matters. As you listen, don't collect these ideas like quotes to admire. Let them confront you. Ask yourself where you've been avoiding effort, where you've been feeding anxiety, and where you've been waiting for the perfect moment, instead of becoming the person capable of acting now. If you are ready to live with more purpose, more discipline, and more inner peace, then these lessons were written for you. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Own the morning. Every morning, before the world asks anything of you, a quiet battle takes place. The bed is warm, the body is heavy, the mind begins to negotiate. Just 5 more minutes, just today, just this once. And without realizing it, you hand over the first victory of the day to comfort, not to necessity, not to purpose, to comfort. Marcus Aurelius understood this battle intimately. He didn't romanticize mornings. He didn't pretend discipline was pleasant. He spoke to himself with blunt honesty. At dawn, when you struggle to get out of bed, remind yourself that you are rising to do the work of a human being. Not an animal seeking warmth, not a child hiding from effort. A human being made for action, contribution, and responsibility. Owning the morning is not about waking up early to impress anyone. It's about refusing to begin your day in surrender. The moment you stay in bed out of avoidance rather than rest, you teach your mind a dangerous lesson. That comfort outranks duty. And once that lesson settles in, it doesn't stay in the bedroom. It follows you into your work, your relationships, your decisions. You delay hard conversations. You postpone meaningful effort. You wait for motivation instead of acting without it. The Stoics knew something modern life tries to hide from you. Discipline creates energy, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel ready. You act, and readiness follows. When you rise with intention, even when you don't feel like it, you send a signal to yourself that you are in command. That signal shapes the rest of the day. Your posture changes, your focus sharpens, your tolerance for nonsense drops. Morning is the one moment where the world hasn't fully invaded your mind yet. No demands, no noise, no expectations, except the one you place on yourself. If you lose that moment to laziness, you spend the rest of the day reacting. If you claim it, you move with direction. This is why the first act of discipline is not productivity, not planning, not achievement. It is simply standing up when comfort tells you to stay down. Marcus didn't say this because he enjoyed hardship. He said it because he respected human potential. He believed you were designed to contribute, to endure, to build, and to serve something greater than fleeting pleasure. Staying under the covers when you are capable of rising is not rest. It is avoidance disguised as kindness. Owning the morning doesn't require perfection, it requires honesty. Ask yourself, each dawn, why you are still lying there. Is your body truly exhausted, or is your mind resisting responsibility? Learn to tell the difference. Rest when rest is needed. Rise when resistance is the only thing holding you back. When you master this single habit, getting up because it is time to live, not because you feel like it, you reclaim something essential, self-respect. And with self-respect comes momentum. With momentum comes clarity. And with clarity, life begins to feel lighter, not because it became easier, but because you became stronger. This is where change begins, not tomorrow, not later, at dawn. Lesson 2. The obstacle is the way. There is a moment in every life when something blocks your path, a delay, a failure, a rejection, a person who stands in your way, and almost instinctively you tense up. You complain internally, you ask, why now? Why me? As if life has made a mistake, as if the obstacle is an interruption to your progress, not part of it. Marcus Aurelius saw this illusion clearly. He understood that what you call a problem is often the raw material of your growth. Not something to curse, but something to use. Not something that halts action, but something that advances it. What stands in the way becomes the way, not metaphorically, but practically, psychologically, and morally. Think about it honestly. Who would you be without resistance? Without difficulty, there is no patience to develop, no courage to awaken, no discipline to sharpen. Comfort does not build character. Smooth roads don't teach you how to walk with strength. Every obstacle forces you to adapt, to think differently, to become more than you were before it appeared. The mistake most people make is trying to remove obstacles instead of transforming themselves through them. They wait for circumstances to improve before acting. They delay until conditions feel right. But life does not reward waiting, it rewards engagement. The Stoic mind does not ask, how do I avoid this? It asks, how do I use this? When something blocks your path, it exposes your habits. It reveals where you lack skill, patience, resilience, or clarity. And that revelation is not an insult, it's guidance. The obstacle points directly at the work you need to do on yourself. The fear shows you where courage must be trained. The delay teaches endurance. The failure sharpens judgment. The insult practices self-control. Marcus lived this daily. War, disease, political tension. None of it stopped him from ruling himself first. He did not waste energy wishing for an easier life. He redirected that energy into mastery of response. You may not command legions, but you face your own battles. Pressure, uncertainty, people who test your limits. The principle is the same. You cannot control what appears in your path, but you can control how you step forward. This shift changes everything. When you stop seeing obstacles as enemies, frustration loses its grip. Anger fades. Complaining becomes pointless. You move from resistance to strategy, from emotion to action, from victimhood to authorship. Ask yourself in difficult moments, what is this situation asking me to become? More disciplined, more patient, more decisive, stronger in silence, clearer in boundaries. The obstacle already contains the answer. If you're willing to look at it without ego, life will not clear the road for you. And it doesn't need to. The road is shaped by what you overcome. When you learn to move forward because of resistance, not in spite of it, you stop fearing difficulty. You begin to trust yourself. And that is real freedom. Lesson 3. Do it now. There is a quiet lie you tell yourself every day, and it sounds harmless. You say, later I'll be more disciplined. Later I'll become calmer. Later I'll fix my habits, my body, my mind, my life. And each time you say it, something inside you weakens, not because you failed, but because you postponed being who you already know you should be. Marcus Aurelius was ruthless with this illusion. He didn't dress it up. He didn't soften it. He told himself plainly, you could be good today, but instead, you choose tomorrow. Not because tomorrow is better, but because today requires effort, courage, and responsibility. Procrastination is rarely about time. It is about avoidance. You don't delay because you don't know what to do. You delay because doing it forces you to confront discomfort. The discomfort of discipline, the discomfort of honesty, the discomfort of acting without guarantees. And so you negotiate with yourself, pretending you're being patient, when in truth, you're being afraid. The Stoic perspective cuts through this self-deception. Life is happening now, not when conditions improve, not when motivation arrives, not when you feel more confident. Virtue, character, and growth do not live in the future. They exist only in the present moment, expressed through action. Every delay is a choice. Every excuse is a vote for the person you don't want to become. Marcus understood that waiting is seductive because it feels safe. Tomorrow is an abstract space where everything seems possible and nothing is demanded. Today, however, is concrete. Today requires you to act with incomplete information, imperfect energy, and uncertain outcomes. And that is precisely why today matters. Character is forged in imperfect conditions, not ideal ones. When you postpone becoming better, you reinforce a dangerous habit. You teach your mind that intention is enough, that wanting to change is equivalent to changing. Over time, this creates a split inside you. You know the right thing, but you don't do it. You admire discipline, but you don't practice it. And slowly, self-respect erodes, not dramatically, but quietly. Doing it now doesn't mean doing everything at once. It means refusing to delay the next right action. One honest conversation, one disciplined decision, one act aligned with who you claim you want to be. Small actions, done immediately, have a power that grand plans never will. They collapse the distance between thought and reality. The Stoics were deeply aware of mortality, not in a morbid way, but in a clarifying one. You do not have unlimited time to get around to it. The version of you that keeps waiting assumes tomorrow is guaranteed. It isn't. And even if tomorrow comes, it comes as another today, another moment that will demand action, not intention. Notice how much energy is wasted in inner debate. Should I start now or later? Should I say something or stay silent? Should I act or wait until I feel ready? This mental noise drains you more than action ever will. Once you act, even imperfectly, clarity follows. Momentum replaces doubt. The mind calms down when it sees movement. Marcus didn't expect himself to be perfect. He expected himself to be sincere. To stop rehearsing virtue and start practicing it, to stop admiring the idea of a good life and begin living one decision at a time. That is the heart of this lesson. Stop arguing with yourself about being a better person. Be one. Ask yourself this, honestly. What are you postponing that you already know you should do? Not someday. Today. Where are you hiding behind later to avoid responsibility? The answer will be uncomfortable. That's how you know it matters. Doing it now is an act of self-respect. It is the moment you stop betraying your own awareness. When you act immediately on what you know is right, something powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself again. And once trust is restored, discipline becomes lighter. Life becomes clearer. The noise fades. You don't need more time. You need more courage in this moment. And this moment is already here. Lesson 4. Leadership is sacrifice. Most people want the position of leadership, but very few want the weight of it. They want the authority, the recognition, the comfort that comes with being followed, but not the burden of responsibility that leadership quietly demands. And this confusion is not accidental. Modern culture teaches you that leadership is about standing above others. Marcus Aurelius understood the opposite. Leadership begins the moment you place yourself beneath duty. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, yet his private reflections reveal a man constantly reminding himself that power was not a privilege to enjoy, but a responsibility to endure. When he wrote that what is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee, he wasn't speaking poetically. He was laying down a brutal standard. Your comfort is irrelevant if it harms the whole. True leadership is not about getting your way. It is about carrying more than your share without resentment. It is about doing what must be done even when no one thanks you for it, especially when no one thanks you for it. The Stoic leader does not ask, "What do I gain from this?" He asks, "What does the situation require of me?" This lesson applies far beyond politics or titles. You lead every time someone depends on you, in your family, in your work, in your friendships, even in how you lead yourself. The moment you choose short-term comfort over long-term responsibility, leadership collapses. And when leadership collapses, chaos quietly fills the space. Marcus did not believe leadership meant domination. He believed it meant restraint, restraint of ego, restraint of anger, restraint of selfish desire. Power, in his view, was dangerous precisely because it tempted the mind to forget its obligations. That is why he constantly reminded himself that he was a servant first, to reason, to justice, to the common good. Sacrifice is the price of influence. The more people look to you, the less you belong to yourself. This is a hard truth most people resist. They want to be admired without being accountable. They want respect without consistency. But respect is earned when others see that you are willing to endure what they cannot and carry what they would avoid. Look closely at the leaders you trust. The real ones absorb pressure so others don't have to. They remain steady when others panic. They choose fairness over popularity. They make decisions that are unpopular in the moment, but necessary in the long run. And they rarely complain, because complaining signals weakness of character, not honesty. Stoicism does not glorify suffering for its own sake. It glorifies purposeful sacrifice. Sacrifice chosen consciously in service of something greater than personal comfort. When you accept responsibility willingly, hardship stops feeling like punishment. It becomes meaning. This is why leadership always begins internally. If you cannot govern your impulses, your moods, your excuses, you are not ready to guide anything else. Self-leadership is the first test. Can you do what needs to be done when no one is watching? Can you hold yourself to standards you don't impose on others? Can you act fairly even when it costs you? Marcus constantly reminded himself that he was not above the law of nature. He was bound by it more strictly, not less. The higher your position, the heavier your obligation to act with integrity. Power does not excuse weakness. It exposes it. Ask yourself honestly, where have you been avoiding responsibility while calling it self-care? Where have you chosen ease over duty and wondered why things slowly fell apart? Leadership doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up quietly in daily choices, whether you confront what needs confronting, whether you show up when it's inconvenient, whether you do what is right, even when it is uncomfortable. Sacrifice is not loss when it aligns with your values. It is alignment, and alignment creates inner authority, the kind no one can take from you. If you want to lead, accept this without resentment. You will carry more, you will rest less, you will be misunderstood, and you will be responsible even when it feels unfair. But in exchange, you gain something rare: self-respect, clarity, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you did not live for comfort, but for purpose. That is leadership. Not being served, but serving without losing yourself. Lesson 5. Discard your anxiety. Anxiety feels like something that happens to you, like an invisible force that attacks without permission, tightens your chest, fills your mind with noise, and drains your energy before the day even begins. You wake up already bracing yourself for problems that haven't occurred, conversations that may never happen, outcomes you cannot confirm. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin living inside your head instead of inside your life. Marcus Aurelius dismantled this illusion with brutal clarity. He wrote that he escaped anxiety, not because the world changed, not because circumstances improved, but because he discarded it. He threw it away once he recognized where it truly lived. Anxiety, he realized, was not imposed from the outside. It was generated internally by perception, judgment, and interpretation. This is the turning point most people never reach. They treat anxiety as an external enemy, something caused by events, people, responsibilities, uncertainty. But Marcus saw that events themselves are neutral. It is the story you attach to them that creates suffering. The mind looks at a situation and immediately adds meaning. This is dangerous. This will go wrong. I won't handle it. This will ruin me. And the body reacts as if the threat were real. Anxiety is not foresight. It is imagination without discipline. It is the mind rehearsing loss, failure, and humiliation over and over, believing that worry equals preparation. But worry prepares nothing. It exhausts you before the test even arrives. And often the test never comes at all. Stoicism does not deny difficulty. It denies panic. Marcus did not pretend life was safe. He accepted that it was uncertain, unstable, and often unfair. But he refused to let his inner state be dictated by possibilities rather than realities. He trained himself to separate what is happening from what he thinks might happen. Most of your anxiety lives in the future, not the real future, the imagined one. A future where things spiral out of control, where you say the wrong thing, where you fail publicly, where everything collapses. And yet when the future arrives, it always arrives as the present. One moment, one decision, one response. Anxiety tries to make you fight battles that do not exist yet. To discard anxiety, you must reclaim authority over your judgments. Ask yourself, calmly and repeatedly, what is actually happening right now? Not what might happen, not what could happen right now. Most of the time, the honest answer is simple. You are safe, breathing, capable, and not under immediate threat. The body relaxes when the mind stops lying to it. Marcus trained himself to pause between stimulus and reaction, to observe his thoughts without obeying them. This is crucial. Thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Anxiety speaks in absolutes and catastrophes. Stoic reason responds with facts and proportion. Is this within my control? If yes, act calmly. If no, release it. Carrying what you cannot control is not responsibility. It is self-harm. Anxiety also feeds on resistance. The more you fight reality, the more tension you create. You want certainty where none exists. You want guarantees life never promised. Amore fati, loving your fate, begins here. When you stop demanding that life be predictable, anxiety loses its strongest weapon. This does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming precise. Focus your energy where it belongs, on your actions, your values, your effort. Let go of outcomes, opinions, and imagined disasters. The Stoic mind does not waste energy trembling over shadows. There is also a deeper layer. Anxiety often hides a lack of trust in yourself. You worry because you doubt your ability to respond when the moment comes. Marcus solved this not by worrying more, but by building character daily. Discipline, honesty, courage, and restraint create inner stability. When you trust your character, the future becomes less threatening. You may not control events, but you trust your response. Discarding anxiety is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. Each time anxious thoughts arise, you examine them, strip them of exaggeration, and return to what is real. Over time, the mind learns a new pattern. Calm replaces tension. Presence replaces rumination. Ask yourself this: how much of your life have you spent suffering things that never happened? How much energy has anxiety stolen from moments that could have been lived fully? Marcus would tell you plainly that suffering was optional. You are allowed to put the weight down. Anxiety is not a duty. It is not wisdom. It is not preparation. It is a habit, and habits can be unlearned. When you discard anxiety, you don't become careless. You become clear. You meet life as it is, not as your fears imagine it to be. And in that clarity, something rare emerges. Inner peace that does not depend on circumstances. That peace is not fragile, it is trained. Lesson 6. Dealing with difficult people. Every day, whether you want to or not, you will encounter people who test your patience. They interrupt, they criticize, they provoke. They act unfairly, selfishly, or disrespectfully. And each time it happens, you feel that familiar inner reaction rising. The urge to correct them, to confront them, to let their behavior dictate your emotional state. Most people surrender in that moment. They hand over their peace without realizing it. Marcus Aurelius refused to be surprised by human behavior. Each morning, he reminded himself that the people he would meet were likely to be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This wasn't pessimism. It was psychological preparation. He understood that disappointment comes not from reality, but from unrealistic expectations. When you expect people to be perfect, considerate, and fair, you set yourself up for constant frustration. When they fail, as they inevitably will, you react with anger or bitterness. The Stoic approach is radically different. Expect imperfection, and you remove its power to shock you. What you anticipate cannot control you. Difficult people are not obstacles placed in your life by mistake. They are part of the environment, like weather. You don't get angry at the rain for falling. You adjust. You protect yourself. You move intelligently. In the same way, you are not required to absorb other people's dysfunction emotionally in order to coexist with them. Marcus understood that people act according to their level of understanding, character, and inner conflict. Their behavior is a reflection of them, not a personal attack on you. When you grasp this fully, something shifts. Insults lose their sting. Provocation loses its grip. You stop reacting and start choosing. The true danger is not difficult people. It is losing self-control because of them. The moment you allow someone else's behavior to determine your inner state, you surrender authority over yourself. Stoicism treats this as a failure of judgment, not of circumstances. You cannot control how others behave, but you are fully responsible for how you respond. This does not mean tolerating abuse or pretending everything is acceptable. Stoicism is not passivity, it is clarity. Sometimes the right response is silence. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is firm boundaries expressed without anger. The key is that your response comes from reason, not impulse. Ask yourself in moments of irritation, why does this affect me so deeply? Often the answer reveals attachment to ego, to validation, to control. Difficult people expose your weak points, and that exposure, while uncomfortable, is valuable. It shows you where you still depend on external approval or respect to feel stable. Marcus believed that anger toward others often comes from forgetting our shared human condition. Everyone is struggling with something you cannot see. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it contextualizes it. Compassion in Stoicism is not softness. It is understanding without surrender. There is also a strategic advantage to remaining calm. A composed person sees more clearly. When emotions flare, judgment narrows. Difficult people often seek reaction. When they don't get it, their power evaporates. Silence, restraint, and composure are forms of strength that cannot be manipulated. Over time, practicing this discipline builds something profound: emotional independence. You stop outsourcing your peace. You stop allowing moods, words, or attitudes of others to dictate your inner world. You choose how close people get to you emotionally, not based on habit, but on values. Ask yourself this: how many times have you replayed someone else's words in your mind long after the moment passed? That is stolen time, stolen energy. Marcus would remind you that life is too short to be lived in reaction to the ignorance or immaturity of others. Dealing with difficult people is not about changing them. It is about protecting your inner order. When you remain calm, reasonable, and firm, you lead by example, even if no one notices. And whether they change or not, you remain intact. Inner peace is not achieved by avoiding people. It is achieved by mastering yourself in their presence. Lesson 7. Ask yourself, is this essential? Most of what exhausts you is not hardship, it is excess. Excess noise, excess commitments, excess conversations, excess thoughts that run in circles without leading anywhere meaningful. You move through your days busy, occupied, stimulated, yet strangely empty. And deep down, you sense the truth you rarely stop to face. Much of what fills your time does not deserve it. Marcus Aurelius returned to one ruthless question whenever life became cluttered: is this necessary? Not, is this interesting? Not, is this expected of me? Not, will this keep others pleased? But necessary. That single filter cuts through confusion like a blade. Most people live reactively. They respond to every message, every request, every opinion, every distraction as if it were urgent. And in doing so, they surrender their attention, the most finite resource they possess. The Stoics understood that attention is life itself. Where your attention goes, your character follows. When you fail to ask whether something is essential, you become vulnerable to manipulation. Other people's priorities become your obligations. Other people's noise becomes your inner dialogue. You mistake motion for meaning and activity for progress. And slowly, the important is suffocated by the trivial. Marcus did not advocate withdrawal from life. He advocated precision within it. To remove what is unnecessary is not to do less. It is to live more intentionally. When you strip away the non-essential, energy returns. Focus sharpens. Inner calm follows. Complexity dissolves into clarity. Ask yourself honestly, how many of your daily actions are driven by habit rather than purpose? How many conversations add nothing but drain you? How many worries repeat themselves without producing action? How many obligations exist only because you never questioned them? Each unnecessary thing demands a tax on your energy, your time, your peace. This lesson is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront your own complicity. It is easier to blame exhaustion on life than to admit you've filled it with noise. But Stoicism does not soften truth. It asks you to take responsibility for the structure of your days. Simplicity, in the Stoic sense, is not minimalism for aesthetics. It is discipline for freedom. When you choose only what matters, you are no longer scattered. You move through life with direction instead of drift. You become harder to disturb because fewer things are allowed to matter. There is also moral clarity here. Many actions appear urgent but are ethically neutral or even corrosive. Gossip, comparison, endless debate, performative outrage. None of these improve your character. None of them make you wiser, calmer, or stronger. And yet they consume hours of your life because you never asked the essential question. Marcus constantly reminded himself that life is short, not in a dramatic way, but in a practical one. If your time is limited, then wasting it on what does not contribute to virtue, understanding, or meaningful action is a form of self-betrayal. The question, "Is this essential?" becomes a form of respect for your life, your mind, and your purpose. This principle also applies internally. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every emotion requires expression. Not every impulse should be followed. When you learn to observe your inner world and filter it through necessity, you gain mastery. The mind quiets when it no longer chases everything that appears. Start small, one unnecessary commitment declined, one pointless argument avoided, one habit removed that adds nothing to your growth. Each subtraction creates space, and in that space something rare emerges: depth. Ask yourself at the end of each day, what truly mattered today? What moved me closer to the person I want to be? What was just noise? Over time, this reflection rewires your sense of value. You stop measuring days by how full they were and start measuring them by how aligned they felt. Life does not become empty when you remove the unnecessary. It becomes focused, and focus is power. Lesson 8. Seek out challenges. Comfort feels safe. It whispers that you've earned rest, that you deserve ease, that avoiding difficulty is a sign of intelligence, and for a moment it feels good. But slowly, quietly, comfort begins to dull you. Your edge softens, your tolerance for struggle shrinks, and before you realize it, things that once felt manageable now feel overwhelming. Not because life became harder, but because you became less resilient. Marcus Aurelius warned against this without ever using modern language. He compared life not to a dance, but to wrestling. A dance is graceful, predictable, controlled. Wrestling is rough, uncertain, and demanding. You don't glide through it. You brace, you adapt, you endure. And that distinction matters because it changes how you approach difficulty. When you treat life like a dance, you expect smoothness. You expect cooperation. You expect things to go your way. When they don't, frustration and bitterness follow. But when you treat life like a wrestling match, resistance is expected. Struggle is normal. You step into challenges prepared to be tested, not offended. Seeking out challenges is not about suffering for the sake of suffering. Stoicism is not masochism. It is about training. Just as the body grows stronger through resistance, the mind and character grow through voluntary discomfort. When you consistently choose the easy path, you weaken your ability to face the hard one when it becomes unavoidable. Marcus understood that avoiding challenge makes you fragile. A fragile person is constantly threatened by change, criticism, and uncertainty. A resilient person, by contrast, becomes steadier the more pressure is applied. The difference lies in what they've trained themselves to endure. Modern life removes friction wherever possible. Convenience is marketed as progress. And while convenience has its place, it carries a hidden cost. It deprives you of the small daily struggles that once built strength naturally. When everything is optimized for ease, you must intentionally seek resistance or accept gradual decay. This lesson asks you to stop waiting for life to challenge you and to begin choosing challenges consciously. Hard conversations instead of avoidance, discipline instead of indulgence, responsibility instead of distraction. Each chosen challenge is a signal to yourself that you are capable of more than comfort allows. Fear often disguises itself as logic. You tell yourself you're being realistic, cautious, or patient, when in truth you are avoiding discomfort. Marcus would urge you to question this. Ask, what am I avoiding because it feels difficult, not because it is wrong? The answer usually points directly to where growth is waiting. Challenges also clarify values. When things are easy, you don't have to decide who you are. When things are hard, you are forced to choose. Do you act with integrity or compromise? Do you remain calm or give in to anger? Do you persist or retreat? Difficulty reveals character the way comfort never can. There is dignity in struggle when it is chosen for the right reasons. When you voluntarily step into difficulty, you reclaim agency. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. You are shaping yourself deliberately. Over time, this builds quiet confidence, not arrogance, but trust in your ability to face what comes. Marcus did not seek challenge because he loved pain. He accepted it because he loved excellence. He understood that the purpose of life was not comfort, but alignment with reason and virtue. Wrestling with life was not a curse. It was the training ground for becoming fully human. Ask yourself this: where has comfort made you complacent? Where have you avoided effort and called it balance? Where have you chosen ease and then wondered why you feel weaker, not happier? These questions are not accusations, they are invitations. Seek challenges that refine you, not destroy you. Choose resistance that strengthens discipline, patience, and courage. Over time, you will notice a shift. Things that once intimidated you lose their power. You stand firmer, you react less, you endure more. Life will wrestle with you whether you like it or not. The only question is whether you enter the match trained or unprepared. Lesson 9. Memento mori. Remember death. There is one truth you avoid more than any other, not because it is complicated, but because it is final. You live as if time were abundant, as if tomorrow were promised, as if the important things could always be done later. Days blend into each other. Priorities blur, and without noticing, you begin to treat life as something to be endured rather than something to be lived with intention. Marcus Aurelius returned to a single sobering reminder whenever distraction or ego crept in. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This was not a threat. It was a tool. A way to strip life of illusion and reveal what actually matters. Remembering death is not morbid, it is clarifying. Death exposes the absurdity of wasting energy on things that do not endure: petty conflicts, endless comparison, resentment, trivial ambitions that feed the ego but starve the soul. When you remember that your time is finite, urgency returns, honesty returns, courage returns. Most people fear death not because they are attached to life, but because they have not fully lived it. They delay meaningful action, postpone truth, silence their real voice, and then distract themselves to avoid confronting that inner regret. Memento mori cuts through this self-deception. It asks you quietly but firmly, if this were your last day, would this matter? Marcus used death as a measuring stick. Not to create panic, but to create proportion. Is this worth anger? Is this worth anxiety? Is this worth sacrificing your character? Most things shrink under that lens. Only a few remain. Integrity, love, courage, presence, and meaningful contribution. When you remember death, your excuses lose credibility. Later stops being convincing. So does one day. There is only now, and now is always enough to act with dignity. You may not control how long you live, but you fully control how you meet each moment. This awareness also dissolves fear of judgment. What are opinions when life itself is temporary? What is reputation when time erases all names eventually? Marcus, emperor of the known world, reminded himself that even the greatest figures fade into obscurity. This humility freed him. When you stop clinging to how you are seen, you begin acting according to who you are. Memento mori also deepens gratitude. When you truly accept impermanence, ordinary moments stop feeling ordinary. A quiet morning, a sincere conversation, the ability to breathe, move, think. These are not guaranteed. And recognizing that makes you more present, not less. There is discipline in this remembrance. It anchors you. When anxiety pulls you into the future, death reminds you that the future is uncertain and therefore not worth obsessing over. When regret drags you into the past, death reminds you that the past is finished and cannot be lived again. Only this moment remains. Ask yourself regularly, if my life were shorter than I assume, how would I act today? What would I stop tolerating? What would I start doing immediately? Who would I speak honestly to? Who would I forgive? These questions are uncomfortable because they are truthful. Marcus did not use death to escape life. He used it to enter life more fully, to remove distractions, to strip away false priorities, to align his actions with his values without delay. Remembering death does not make life darker, it makes it sharper. When you live with this awareness, you stop drifting, you stop postponing courage, you stop wasting attention, you begin choosing deliberately, loving sincerely, and acting with clarity. You are not meant to live forever, but you are meant to live fully while you are here. Lesson 10. Amore fati. Love your fate. There is a final test of inner strength that most people never pass. They tolerate life, endure it, survive it, but they never fully accept it. They fight reality quietly, wishing things had been different, replaying old wounds, resenting circumstances they cannot change. And that resistance becomes a constant source of exhaustion. Not because life is cruel, but because they refuse to stop arguing with it. Marcus Aurelius offered a radical alternative. Do not merely accept your life, love it. Love your fate. Not selectively, not only the pleasant parts, all of it. The delays, the losses, the detours, the people who left, the plans that failed. Amore fati is not resignation. It is alignment. Most people misunderstand acceptance. They think it means giving up, lowering standards, or becoming passive. Stoic acceptance is the opposite. It means recognizing reality clearly and choosing to cooperate with it rather than waste energy resisting what cannot be undone. When you stop fighting facts, strength returns. Life does not ask for your approval. Events unfold regardless of your preferences. The question is not whether things should have happened differently. The question is whether you will turn what happened into bitterness or wisdom. Amore fati demands courage because it removes the comforting illusion of victimhood. It asks you to take ownership even when circumstances were unfair. Marcus lived through war, plague, betrayal, and chronic illness. He did not pretend these things were good in themselves, but he refused to label them as meaningless or hostile. He treated them as raw material. Events given by nature to be worked with, shaped, and transformed through character. When you love your fate, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this asking of me?" Patience, strength, detachment, humility. Each event becomes a training ground rather than a punishment. And that shift changes how you move through life. Resistance creates suffering. Alignment creates peace. This is not poetic language, it is psychological reality. When you resist reality, your mind splits in two, what is versus what should be. That gap is where anxiety, resentment, and despair live. When you accept reality fully, the split closes. Energy once wasted on protest becomes available for action. Amore fati also frees you from envy and comparison. When you love your path, you no longer need someone else's. You stop measuring your life against outcomes you were never meant to live. You begin respecting the uniqueness of your journey, including its difficulties. There is dignity in carrying your own weight rather than coveting another's. This lesson does not ask you to enjoy pain. It asks you to stop adding unnecessary suffering to it. Pain happens, loss happens, failure happens. Loving your fate means refusing to poison those experiences with self-pity, denial, or endless rumination. You face them directly, extract meaning, and move forward without resentment. There is also freedom here. When you no longer fight what has already occurred, you become present, fully present. You stop living in alternate timelines and imagined outcomes. You deal with what is in front of you clearly, calmly, decisively. Ask yourself honestly, where are you still arguing with reality? Where are you replaying events that cannot be changed? Where are you waiting for life to apologize before you move on? Amore fati asks you to release these chains. Not because what happened was right, but because carrying resentment only extends its power over you. Marcus understood something simple and profound. Life happens for you or against you only in your interpretation. Events themselves are neutral. Meaning is something you assign through response. When you choose to love your fate, you reclaim authorship over your life story. This is the final Stoic lesson because it completes the circle. Discipline, action, responsibility, calm, focus, challenge, mortality, all of them lead here. To a state where nothing that happens can break you internally because you are no longer at war with life. Love your fate, not because it is perfect, but because it is yours. And when you stop fighting life, life stops feeling like a fight. If you've been listening closely, you may realize that none of these lessons were meant to impress you. They were meant to strip something away. Illusions, excuses. The belief that life owes you comfort, clarity, or perfect conditions before you begin. Marcus Aurelius never wrote to motivate an audience. He wrote to steady himself in a world that offered no guarantees, and that is why his words still reach you now. These 10 lessons all point in one direction: reclaiming authority over your inner world, waking up with purpose instead of avoidance, using obstacles instead of resenting them, acting now instead of postponing virtue, carrying responsibility without complaint, letting go of anxiety by correcting perception, remaining calm among difficult people, cutting away what is unnecessary, choosing challenge over comfort, remembering death to sharpen life, and, finally, loving your fate so nothing that happens can break you from within. This is not about becoming emotionless or detached from life. It is about becoming ungovernable from the inside. When your peace no longer depends on circumstances, people, or outcomes, you move through life with a quiet strength that does not need to prove itself. Stoicism does not promise an easy life. It promises a steady one, a life where you are not constantly pulled apart by fear, resentment, distraction, or regret. A life where your actions align with your values, even when it is uncomfortable. Especially when it is uncomfortable. Now, the question is no longer whether these lessons are wise. The question is whether you will live them. Wisdom admired but not practiced changes nothing. Marcus knew this. That is why he spoke to himself so firmly, so directly. He did not wait to become better someday. He chose to be better now, in the only moment that ever exists. Take one lesson. Just one. Apply it today. Not perfectly, but sincerely. That is how character is built. Quietly, consistently, without applause. And if this episode resonated with you, let it mark a turning point. Not in thought alone, but in action. You don't need a new life. You need a firmer way of living the one you already have.